The legally binding international health regulations made it possible for the World Health Organization to declare a pandemic in 2020. Currently, changes to these regulations are being negotiated that will vastly expand the power of the World Health Organization and undermine the sovereignty of nation states. Catherine Austin Fitz, former Assistant Secretary of Housing, Investment Advisor, and President of the Solari Report, is joining us today to share her insights and her warnings about the changes to these regulations. Catherine, welcome.
Welcome. It's so nice to be with you today.
So, why do you think we should be concerned about the changes to these international health regulations?
The international health regulations are being used to control. So if you look at the governance of the financial system, because I look at this more from the financial side, the central bankers are moving to re-engineer how governments and governance has worked on this planet for the last 100+ years. And we're watching the central bankers literally take over the fiscal side of the government, and they're using healthcare laws and non-financial laws to basically manage the financial system while they move to a system of complete control. And so we've seen the healthcare system used and applied in ways that have nothing to do with health. They have to do with managing the economy and picking winners and losers. So, for example, in the United States, some stores are allowed to stay open and other stores are shut down, all on the theory that there is a pandemic and they shouldn't be allowed to be open. But the store right next door is open, but it happens to be owned and managed by Wall Street as opposed to local business. So we're watching the health infrastructure used to override the basic laws or the constitutional laws of a nation and literally re-engineer both the government and it's a coup d'etat using international regulations and international treaties. And the WHO has been meeting in secret and making these amendments in secret and trying to get them adopted without going through the legislative process in country after country. And if they get away with it, 192 countries are going to be basically turning over control of their country to an unelected group of bureaucrats in Switzerland.
But is that even possible? Because don't you need to pass national legislation to transfer sovereignty?
So in the United States, if you adopt an international treaty that compromises national sovereignty, in the United States, you have to go through the Senate, and 2/3 of the Senate have to approve. Now, the WHO is taking the position that the first portion of what they want to do are amendments under existing treaties, and they can do that without a treaty agreement. Now, what I would say, and I'm hoping 2/3 of the American Senate say, is, no, you can't do that. That's a treaty. Those changes are a new treaty, and they have to go through the treaty process. Even then, what I would say is, that is not a treaty. That's not just an international treaty. If you look at what they want to do, it's a tearing up of the Constitution. I don't think you can agree by international treaty to tear up and destroy the basic laws of a country. So even if the Senate wanted to agree to 2/3, I would say that's not legal.
Good. So can you give an example of the kind of changes that are proposed in the international health regulations?
Well, they've been meeting in secret, and we have some leak documents, but we're not sure what the final thing. So I have to say, with that caveat, we're not allowed to know what they're behind the scenes agreeing. But if what our understanding is correct, is basically what they're saying is they can shut down a whole country's economy and lock them down based on their declaration of a pandemic. And they include lockdowns for climate change. So this is
in the health treaty.
My understanding is the WHO is moving to also do lockdowns based on climate change. Now they say that climate change has a big impact on health. So, one of the things I would recommend is there are two bloggers who've done a very good job of covering what we know about this. One is James Rogowski, and if you go to solari.com, I have a new warning, in fact, that you sent me, that he has put out asking new media to cover this. The other is Dr. Mel Nass has been covering it as well. But again, a lot of what we'd like to know about what they're up to is secret.
Good. So do you have recommendations about what people can do to inform themselves? Of course, read follow these two people, but are there other things they can do, like exert political influence?
Absolutely. So the first thing you want to do is you want to bring transparency to it, because we want to turn the boat before we hit the iceberg, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to bring transparency. But the second thing is you want to persuade your national leaders to, one, stop being a member of the WHO. We can pull out of the WHO. And two, stop financing the WHO. Mm-hmm. The third thing you can do is you can look at the banks and private corporations who are encouraging this and supporting the WHO financially, and say, we're not going to support them either. Mm-hmm. We're going to pull. And we've seen an incredible movement. Finally, as you know, I think this is the controls being put through the WHO and through various mechanisms like climate change. A lot of these controls, I believe, are simply a way for the central bankers to manage inflation between now and when they get full transactional control with CBDCs. So I think this is an interim bridge. And at the heart of the matter is our problem is with the central bankers in the banking system. Mm-hmm. So I'm a great believer. Everything you can do to move your money out of the digital systems and out of the big banks. And, we encourage everybody to use cash, because what we want to avoid is a 100% digital transaction system. Mm-hmm. Once we move to a 100% digital transaction system, it can be controlled centrally. And if you look at their vision of the kind of control they want, what they're talking about is basically taking the position that any money that you have is their money, not yours, and they can take it, they can shut it down. Mm-hmm. They can enforce taxation without representation, and essentially mandate whatever they want. So anything you can do to take your financial transactions analog and use cash. Mm-hmm. Another thing you can do is support your local farmer and local food systems, because the second vector for control, in addition to financial transactions, as you know, is food, because you've written and researched a lot of it. We're very excited about this new piece you're coming out with called Pharma Food. So I don't want to give too much away because it's not out yet. But if you look at the move to control the food system, it's very concerning, and it's related to controlling the financial transactions. You control financial transactions in food, you've got control. So anything we can do to move our transactions to cash and keep from an all digital system and encourage local food systems gets us to a place where we're more grounded, more resilient, and we've got more of a local economy for us.
Good. So to backtrack a little bit, let me see if I understand it correctly. So right now we see inflation massively increasing, and a lot of people are noticing it. The energy prices are going through the roof, like in Europe, but especially also in the Netherlands. So perhaps they cannot control the financial system anymore. So basically they need the lockdowns through the WHO. If the economics run amok before they have a CBDC?
Yeah, so inflation is rising, and we're leaving a period. We've been in a period where energy was very cheap and capital was very cheap. Mm-hmm. So now we're moving out of a period, and one of the ways that the Western world has worked for the last 50, really since World War II, mm-hmm. is the leadership has been able to deliver a great deal of subsidy and a very good cost of living, way of living for most people. Mm-hmm. And now with cheap energy and cheap capital being over, in particular because you've made massive investments globally, and so now you have more pressure on resources coming from demand from Asia and the emerging markets. So as you get that increase in demand and you get more and more expensive energy, more and more expensive capital, you can't afford to, or they don't want to continue to subsidize the way of life in the West. So the question is, and there's been a process in the United States where a great deal of money has been stolen. I mean, we've literally had a financial coup d'etat. And so rather than provide the money for retirement, what they decided was basically to steal the equivalent of people's retirement savings. And now rather than turn to them and say, oh, guess what, we stole your money, they need to say, okay, we need to cut back. We can't afford this style of living. We can't afford the retirements we thought you have all these promises that they now have to walk back, whether it's because you have, greater demand for energy and the price of energy is going up, or because you had a financial coup d'etat. All these reasons add up to you want to radically reduce lifestyles and the quality of living. And the question is, you can do that once you have control of financial transaction, but how do you get from here to there? And one of the ways we've chosen to get here with there is exercising control of the economy through health rules, health regulations, and now coming another wave of control coming justified by climate change.
Good. Well, not good, but thank you for this.
Well, it's, here's the thing. It's simple. When digital technology grown, the central bankers have a dilemma. They can the only way they can continue to control the way they have for the last 100 years is to move to complete control. Otherwise, they lose control. Yes. So they're looking at a world where they have two options: move to complete control or lose control. And I think what they've decided is, okay, we're going to move to complete control. We also have two options. We can say, we can look at the options they're choosing and say, okay, we can be free and have to build a new kind of model, a new kind of civilization, which we can do, or we can be slaves with the central bankers controlling us. So they feel they have two options, and now we have two options. And the question for each person listening to this is, okay, do I just want to go to the flow and become a slave, or do I want to try and be free, but in the middle of the chaos, help build a real human civilization? So.
Yeah, and it's important to realize that it's still a choice.
Yes. We still have a choice. When they get digital ID, if they should get digital IDs and CBDCs, our homes and communities turn into digital concentration camps. And as a practical matter, we lose that choice. So choose now, because we do have a choice, and we can. It's amazing. The greatest lie on the planet is it's hopeless. There's nothing you can do. You're only one person. Your account doesn't count. But what we saw in 2022 was glorious pushback, including by consumers and people choosing to use cash. And, if you look at some of the companies that were too aggressive in pushing this central control, their stocks are down 50, 60, 70, 85%. It's pretty impressive. The people are very quietly saying, no, we want to be free, and we want a better world for our children. People will really fight for their children. And that's what we're seeing. If you look quietly, there's a quiet revolution going on. It's glorious.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing this information and taking the time. And I hope that a lot of people will share this video so that a lot of people are aware of this. Basically, it's a coup that they're trying to install. And we will organize a lot of pushback. Yeah,
and something better.
Exactly.
We will build something worth being. We will create a future that we can attract ourselves and our children into.
Yes, viable alternatives.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.